Folks, you know what time it is. It is Monday. It's 7 p.m., which means it's time for another episode of Monday Night Nerd, episode 153. Welcome, one and all. If you are new here, welcome. Take a seat, grab a drink. We're going to have a great talk tonight. My name is Myers, Corp Cosplay. I'm a cosplayer in the Southern Ontario area, and this is my podcast. We do this every single Monday night at 7 p.m. Monday Night Nerd. We talk about nerdy things. It could be cosplay. It could be comics. It could be movies. It could be video games. It could be wrestling. It could be a whole bunch of other stuff. Tonight, specifically, we're going down the road of comics, specifically to talk about one of my favorite books, and that is the Marvel Civil War miniseries. And we're going to be talking about the comparisons between the movie and the books. We're going to talk about what made the book so great, why they still, if you read them in 2026, how they still kind of work today, and a whole lot more. And we got a whole bunch of news to talk about as well. I hope you all are having a great week. I had a very extra, I had planned on going on vacation, as I talked about last week. Unfortunately, those plans got changed, but I did still get to enjoy an extra long weekend here at the house with the wife. I got a lot of stuff done around the house. I got some stuff going on in the other room. I have some 3D prints that I've been working on that I'm going to be showing off on my social media, which, by the way, if you do not have me on social media, you should find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on TikTok. Specifically, if you do not have me on TikTok yet, you should, because there is a video that I did over the past couple weeks that is just doing fabulous right now. It is a style of video that everybody's doing right now. It's the high school reunion video where they show the yearbook and then it shows what people are like today. It is technically my 15-year anniversary from graduating high school, so I thought it would be fun to do myself and what my yearbook photo looked like, and now, because my name is Michael Myers, what Michael Myers would look like now, holding a root beer and in a Hawaiian shirt, and it is doing really well. Which, by the way, folks, I want to stress this. A, I really appreciate that people like the video, but B, this is a video that did not go up this week. This was a week, if not 2 weeks ago, that I've posted this video. So for those people who, when they post something online and they don't like that it didn't do as well as they'd hoped when it first went up, give it time to breathe. Some of these things take a little longer. On TikTok, Instagram, all of these platforms, it's not always right off the bat. Take your time, wait. Some things need some time to breathe before it actually hits the virality that you might want. If you don't have me on TikTok, I greatly appreciate if you could follow me on TikTok, because we are this close. We are about, I think, 15 to 16 people away from hitting the magic 1,000 people on TikTok, which is something I never thought I would hit, because TikTok was definitely a platform that I struggled with when it first came out. So I appreciate it. And if you do go on TikTok and you do follow me there, it is not just because I appreciate it. There is cosplay content coming up. I have a bunch of new cosplay Q&As. I've got a cosplay myth bunch of those videos coming up. We got some montage videos. We've got some other fun videos that are coming up over the next little while. So there is a reason to follow me besides this pretty face. I think that's kind of it for the intro. Let's jump into what's sometimes people say is one of the best parts of the show, the news. Live from the multiverse, it's Monday Night News. All right, we have a lot to talk about today on the news. There are some things that are positive. There are, sadly, if you're a nerdy fan, specifically the dinosaur genre, something that is very negative. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, we usually talk about the video games and stuff that I have been playing. And most recently, I told you guys that I had finished Zero Dawn Horizon. And actually, I jumped into a game that I've not played in a very, very long time. And it's because it was on a system that I haven't played in a very long time, and that is my PS4. I've not pulled on my PS4 in a very long time. However, we had some little family members over here recently, and they have been wanting to play PlayStation VR for a while, so I decided, hey, I should pull this out. We should have some fun with it. And after they were done with it, I thought, man, there's a couple games on here I should give another try to. And one of them is one that I love, and it was Moss. Now, if you don't know what Moss is, it is a specifically VR game. It is about a little mouse in a storybook, and you are controlling the world around the mouse, and you're controlling the mouse as well. He is on an epic quest to avenge a family member who has passed away. He has been kidnapped, sorry, and you have to make your way through it. If you've ever seen the Nintendo Switch and seen like the Toad treasure tracker, it's kind of like that, and it's really cool. The graphics are amazing, especially in the VR world. You see the entire world around you. You are what is known as the reader, and he kind of can manipulate little things to help the mouse out. It is such a fun game, and I'd played it to a certain length, and then I jumped into a couple other VR games, and I realized that if I play a lot of games that have a lot of motion to it, I get motion sickness. This game does not affect me, though, thankfully. So I was playing it, and I finished it, and I'm so glad I did because the ending was amazing. Now I gotta wait for number 2 to come out, which I really appreciate. And I know we've talked last week about Sony and all of their problems, but I do appreciate that the Moss 2 came out for the PS5 VR, but you can play it on the PS4 VR, which I appreciate that because there's a lot of games for the 5 that don't work with the 4, but this one does. Other than that, I have now jumped into another amazing game for the VR, which is called Blood and Truth, which is basically sort of an action adventure type game. There's a lot of gunplay and stuff. It's a lot of fun. And I'll tell I beat it before, but now I'm going to run through the trophies because I am very close to hitting almost 10,000 trophies on my PlayStation account. So I want to hit that number very, very soon because I don't know, I'm that type of person. I used to trophy hunt like crazy. I'm usually somebody who will try and get as many trophies without struggling. Like if I get to a point where it's just grinding, I'm not going to do that, but I do like a good trophy hunt. Let's talk about the Marvel Universe. Let's not jump into Civil War specifically a little bit. Let's jump into X-Men 97. The first 4 episodes of X-Men 97 are out in the world. Episode 1, 2, 3, and 4 of season 2. I finally got a chance to watch them over the weekend, and I'm going to give you guys my initial thoughts on it. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers because obviously this is a brand new series. It's only been out for a certain length of time, and I don't want to, spoil anything. If you watch season 1, you know that season 1, at the end of it, you knew that the X-Men team kind of got blown backwards and forwards into time, and I think you can kind of tell by any of the preview images that came out, we are going to be dealing with the past and the present and the future. So there are going to be different iterations of each character, kind of outfits and stuff that we've seen in the comic books. Each episode of the first 4 episodes kind of takes place in a different time. There's one that's in the future, there's one that's in the current, and then there's one that's in the past. And the big bad, which I think, again, we can all tell from the trailers and everything that's come out, it is Apocalypse. And we get the backstory of Apocalypse, which I appreciate because while he is a great villain, I don't think a lot of new fans of the Marvel Universe really know the story of Apocalypse, which I really appreciate the way they wrote this one. It's very clean. It's very easy to understand. He's one of those bad guys that you kind of feel a little sympathy for, which I appreciate because that makes the villain so much better. I think the first 4 episodes were great. I will admit there were a couple episodes that were a little slow in moments, but they're only 30-minute episodes, so that slowness did not take up too much time. There is, similar to the first season, there is an episode that focuses on a particular team member that isn't normally the center of attention, which I really appreciate because I think that character, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, she does not, and I'll say she does not get the spotlight as much as I think she deserves, and I think this kind of shows her off her powers and her personality very, very well. And similar to that, because I don't want to spoil too much about what she does in this episode, there are changes to the intro, X-Men 97 intro for each episode. It includes whatever members of the team are going to be involved. and there are some cameos in there from members of from other X teams, which I appreciate, especially one that I've always been a giant fan of that I would love to cosplay, but his cosplay is way too complicated for me to do to make myself happy with it. But overall, it is a great first 4 episodes. I think they're doing weekly now, which I'm fine with. I'm not someone who binges, so I'm perfectly fine waiting week to week. But I'm excited. I'm really excited where they're going to go with this. I think this is probably the scariest I've seen Apocalypse written, and the most bloodthirsty, which I appreciate, because I think while he is a big bad, I think he does kind of get pushed to the back because X-Men usually have to deal with things bigger than just the X-Men universe. So appreciate it. I think it's going to be a good season. And I think they've already signed on for season 3. So even if it's bad, I think we got a third one on its way. Do we do the sad? Do we end the sad, or do we start with the sad? Or let's do the sad now and get it out of the way. If you woke up this morning, if you were a nerd or a geek or anything in the 90s, hell, I wouldn't even say the 90s because the movie kind of just goes for generations at this point. We lost Sam Neill this morning. We lost Alan Grant from the Jurassic Park world. 78 years old, just successfully battled blood cancer. So this was kind of a surprise to his family. It sucks. We kind of are in that time now where a lot of the people that we grew up loving has now hit that age where some people, the clock is ticking. You know, we lost people like Ozzy Osbourne. There are other actors and celebrities that are getting to that age where, you know, they don't have a ton of years left. So it's sad to see this, especially someone with the talent of Sam Neill. Obviously, an incredible career, but obviously the one that everyone kind of knows him the best is the Jurassic Park world, is Alan Grant. And then for me, because I'm a horror fan, if you're a 90s horror fan, you know of the movie Event Horizon, which he's incredible in as well. If you've never seen that movie and you like psychological horror, please go watch that. It's such a good film. But yeah, that was one that I think kind of hit us as a generation. You know, there's a few of these celebrities that have passed away over the past couple of years that we kind of just sit there and kind of take in that moment of reading the news and kind of where were you at the time when you heard about it. We all kind of woke up to this, which wasn't fun, but we used to do a segment on the show every episode when I first started this called Thank You for the Memories, and it's sort of every week I tried to find someone that passed away. Fortunately, we don't do that anymore because I feel like it's kind of a downer, but I do feel like certain people like this do deserve a little bit of a shout out for their work. So as we say on the show, and we say every now and then, Sam Neill, thank you for the memories. Okay, let's jump into a little bit of news that I'm a big MCU fan. We're talking about Marvel tonight, and this photo came out a couple days ago. It's kind of leaked from San Diego Comic-Con, which is next week, showing off the first look at Doom and everyone that is involved. We're going to look at the photo here. I'm going to pull it up. This is kind of... Let me shrink it a little bit. There we go. So this is the first leaked photo, and I don't mind showing it. I don't like leaks that much, but this one is kind of different because I got a feeling this is going to be kind of the big publicity next weekend. I have a thing here on the podcast and sort of in life about Marvel, Star Wars, and a bunch of these franchises where I don't think you need to really show off too much, because I feel like the people who are fans of the franchise have already bought their ticket or were planning on buying their ticket. If you show off anything, I think you have a better chance of losing those people. And I think this picture is a very good example of this. I think when everyone thought of all the people that are going to be fighting in this Doomsday movie, they kind of thought everybody. But from what this picture looks like, it's not everybody. And that, from what I've seen online, people are not thrilled by this. So if you're watching on YouTube, you obviously have Doom in the middle. It's the first time we've seen the mask. I think That's kind of what we all expected. I don't think there's any big crazy thing about that. Below him, you can see with the horns, there's Loki in the middle. I think based off what we know about him, I don't think he's going to play much of a role besides maybe as a watcher and maybe manipulating time a little bit. We have the X-Men on the bottom. We've got Gambit, Nightcrawler, Mystique, Cyclops, Beast, Magneto, and Professor X. To the left, we've got the Thunderbolts with Sentry in the back. We've got Ant-Man. We've got Cap in his black shirt, which every male cosplayer is going, I could just wear a black t-shirt and some semi-long hair and carry Mjolnir, and I've got a Captain America costume now. We've got Thor with Stormbreaker. On the right, we've got Fantastic Four. We've got the Black Panther with Shuri and Banuk, I believe his name is. I never remember his name. We've got Shang-Chi for the first time in a long time. And then we've got Falcon, and we've got Falcon's little buddy that I don't remember. I've kind of sent this to a couple friends, and my comment to each one of them was, besides Thor, Cap, and the Fantastic Four, I don't feel any of these guys can compete with the power of Doom. Like, this does not look like a team that I would feel comfortable going into battle with. The Thunderbolts have faced a level threat of this size, but they hugged it to death, so that doesn't count in my book. Ant-Man is kind of the assistant Avenger, so he kind of helps, but not really. Fantastic Four fought Galactus. Shuri and Banuk. Again, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry if it's wrong. Never really faced anything like this, and I don't count the big battle at the end of Endgame because they weren't fighting Thanos, they were fighting his minions. Shang-Chi, maybe to a point. Falcon and Buddy, no, I don't think so. X-Men is kind of the wild card, and this is something that I didn't think about until a friend of mine, Sean, brought this up about this photo. This is not the Fox Universe X-Men. And because it's not the Fox Universe X-Men, we can't say who they've battled already. They look like the Fox Universe people, but if you remember at the end of Last Stand, spoiler, we lose Cyclops, Magneto, or Cyclops, Professor X, and Mystique loses her powers. So this is Gambit's world. And that means we don't know what they've fought. We have a feeling that they've fought Sentinels because we see that one shot in that teaser with Cyclops. But that's the wild card. But right now, looking at this photo, I'm not jumping for joy over this photo. The one thing I did notice is that if as an artist, as someone who's drawn a lot and done a lot of creative design, a lot of these posters and a lot of art likes balance. And this looks a little lopsided. There's a lot going on the right. Like we've got Doom in the middle, we got Cap, we got Mr. Fantastic, and then we kind of have the team, and then the X-Men are in the bottom as a team. There's a big open space to the left of Thor. Is that intentional, or are we kind of doing a Spider-Man trailer where we're missing somebody? And if we are, who? That's my question, because even the top right, we've got Falcon and the Buddy. It feels like that's a lot of negative space in that left. So, I don't know. Pretty Nerdy Crystal says this poster looks so fan-made. It does. Like I'm not gonna pick on people's artistic talent, but that does not look like Johnny Storm to me. That really doesn't look like Johnny Storm. But yeah, I'm gonna be there day one. I'm gonna watch it, but that poster just does not do anything for me personally. The only other news I want to talk about tonight is if you're a horror fan, Hollywood Reporter has officially announced that there is another Nightmare on Elm Street movie on its way. They're in production officially. They're figuring it out. Have we not said everything we need to with the Elm Street franchise? I mean, really? We had the original bunch. We had the remake that was terrible. what else are we going to do? Because if we do the remake again, we're telling the same story for a third time. If we do something completely different, you're going to get the fan base is going to be very frustrated that we're doing something completely different. I don't know what they're going to do with this, but I feel like, yeah, we've kind of hit a wall with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise of what do we do with this that's different that is going to keep the audience happy. The only thing that I've seen from any fan that has made me go, okay, you've got me, is someone said to be the actor as Freddy Krueger should be played by Jim Carrey. I was like, you know what? You got me there. Jim Carrey as Freddy Krueger, I think would be a pretty cool concept. Having someone who did the facial expressions and stuff for the Grinch, I could think he could pull off Freddy Krueger pretty cool. I doubt we'll ever get it, but as a fan casting, I think it's a cool choice. But yeah, they're going to do another Friday the 13th or another Nightmare on Elm Street. Amazon just announced they're doing they didn't announce it. The trailer dropped for the new Friday the 13th TV show, which again, we're turning the first movie into a full season. I don't know. I just feel like we've done this again too many times and we're kind of repeating the same notes. But hey, it's Hollywood. They're going to keep remaking stuff. So people keep watching, even if it's just out of boredom. I don't know. That's kind of it for the news, folks. We're going to jump into the sponsor, and then we're going to jump into the main event, folks. If you're still here, I greatly appreciate it. If you can follow me here on socials, on YouTube, and on TikTok, that'd be greatly appreciated. As I said earlier, we are very close to hitting 1,000 people on TikTok, 1,000 followers. I would greatly appreciate the follows. We got a bunch of content coming out there. We got a bunch more content coming out on here on YouTube. We have a bunch of cosplay breakdowns on their way. We have Dash Rendar coming up. We have some closet cosplays coming up of Eddie Munson from Stranger Things and the American Psycho Patrick Bateman cosplay as well. So check out those. We're going to be doing some more props. We're going to be doing some more videos about different aspects of cosplay to help you out with your cosplay. So if you can give me a follow there, it'd be greatly appreciated. Sponsor, as always, you know the sponsor. It's my beautiful, loving, amazing, incredible wife. She is always the sponsor here on the podcast because I would not be the person I am without her. And that's not me sucking up. That is the absolute truth. My wife is incredible and she supports me in all these crazy things that I decide to do, like, do a podcast and cosplay and do all these fun things. So, hun, you will always be my sponsor. I love you. Noah, Freakish Workshop is in chat. Scream didn't do the TV thing very well, so I doubt it will work. Agreed. Maybe a skins ranking for Sony Spider-Man 2 game. Ooh, that could be fun. I do have a couple top 10s that I'm going to be coming out with, but I do like the skins ranking for Spider-Man 2. Maybe I should have a guest on the show when we do that. All right, folks, let's jump into the main event. I promise we will not be here all night like last week where we were here till way after 8 o'clock. But again, it's time for the main event. It's time for the main event. Alrighty, folks, we are here. It is the main event of the show. Tonight we are talking about Marvel Civil War, the comic book series. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the movie because this is kind of a really cool series to me. This is definitely not going to be this book is better than the movie because it's just, that's just the boring argument sometimes. Like, it's two completely different mediums. A book you can do as big as you want. A movie you kind of have to stick within a certain time frame. I do want to talk about some things that if you've just seen the movie and you haven't read the comics, this might make you want to read the comic book because it is it's not a very different story, but the reasons behind it are a lot better, I think. It's a great story that ties into the entire Marvel universe, which is something back then when they first came out in 2006. It wasn't something that was done very often. Now, sadly, since the New 52 and Blackest Night and all these things, Marvel and DC have this really big problem of trying to incorporate every single title into every single big story, and it just gets way too much. And this was a time when I was kind of into comics, but not really into comics. As I've said many times on the podcast, my first fan expo was 2009 at Fan Expo Canada, but I was kind of into the comic book world at that point, but not really. So this was something that caught my attention and brought me a little closer to being more of the comic book fan like I am today. Pretty Neuter Crystal said he totally means me, Noah. Yes, Crystal, you will be on the show, and we're going to be talking about Spider-Man 2. That is your homework. You need to play Spider-Man 2 the whole way through so you can figure out what all the skins are. I say this as somebody who still hasn't watched Lord of the Rings. To be fair, I was going to watch Lord of the Rings on the plane ride to vacation, but I did not get the opportunity. So I know I have to figure out where to make 3.5 hours in my schedule to watch this bloody movie because I made a deal. All right, let's talk about Marvel Civil War. So this is a series that came out in 2006, 2007. It's a 7-issue miniseries, and like I said, this had many tie-in books. Almost every single book in the Marvel line at that point was incorporated into Civil War because the main title had such a big impact. This was not a completely different universe. This was when everything was one universe. It was written by Mark Millar and drawn by Steve McNiven. I absolutely love Steve McNiven's artwork, especially in this book. It is very vibrant. It shows... I have a thing, because I used to draw when I was a kid, that if the art didn't catch me, I probably wouldn't read the book. So this one, as soon as I saw Cap and Tony going right at each other, I was like, okay, this is an interesting look, and I love the art, so I'm sold on this book. Mark Millar, I'm kind of hit and miss with his writing, and we're going to talk more about that with this because people have their thoughts on how he wrote this book. Noah, arguably one of the most important major events in all of comic book history. Yes, 100%. So if you've seen the movie Marvel Civil War, you know what that storyline is. And if you haven't, the Marvel Cinematic Universe's version of this is Hulk kind of goes on a rampage in a foreign country. I don't remember exactly which one. Does a bunch of destruction, and then no, the Hulk is a different one. This is Crossbones, has an explosion, and the explosion takes out a giant building, and Wanda and Cap and a bunch of others try to hold that explosion as best they can. However, she can only do so much, and it does take out some people. That is in the Marvel universe, that is kind of a devastating loss for the Marvel team, for the Marvel team, the Avengers and adjacent team. However, in the comic book version of Marvel Civil War, it is a lot darker, it is a lot bigger. So in the comic book version of Civil War, there's a team called the New Warriors, and they're battling a group of villains. I believe there's about 4 or 5 of them, and one of them specifically Nitro, and Nitro can explode. They're in Stamford, Connecticut, and they're filming a reality TV show because in 2006 and 2007, reality TV was huge. Nitro goes too far and explodes in the middle of the shoot and kills more than 600 people, including school children and every villain and new warrior that was in the area, except for, I believe, Speedball was the only one that survives. This is a devastating moment in that comic because it's not just an explosion in the middle of the city, because that's the Marvel universe. Like we've seen that 100 times. But to know that it happens by someone who is not a fully trained hero, and that it was so close to a school, and they actually have a count of more than 600 people, including school children, and everyone in the area, including the villains and heroes, that's a big toll. And I think that is what kind of sets the stage the best in this. I think if they did something like what happens in the movie where Crossbones sets the explosion off, it works for what the world kind of is in the MCU, but this one having the freedom to kind of go all over and having just Nitro's not a random character, but he is a very small time villain, go almost nuclear and blow up and take out 600 people near a school. Like, that's something they could not do in the movies, and it really pushes, I feel it pushes the Registration Act more than the MCU. And I think that's one of the only times where I will say the book does it better, because while the explosion happens in the MCU and it is important and it is a big deal, it just feels like anything else. And it might be because we kind of have it was around the same time as, I don't know if it was before, I think it was still before Man of Steel, but we had movies similar to Man of Steel where it was just explosions left, right, and center. So I don't want to say we were numb to it and it just didn't hit us as hard. It hit the universe supposedly hard, but not us. And I feel like this in the comic book made it a lot more impactful of, oh, maybe we do need a Registration Act on mutants and people with powers, because this is devastating. And very similar to the movie, we have the split in the side. So we have Tony's wanting pro accountability, which is similar to what's in the movie, and then you have Cap, Steve Rogers, who very anti-government. He's worried that if these heroes and villains start signing up for this, then the government's going to basically use them as weapons. And this is a very interesting dynamic, and I think this is one that a lot of people do argue with Mark Millar about the way he wrote this, because some people see Cap, because he is that figure of America, he is that poster child literally in the World War II era of America, that he should be on the side of the government. He should be for the registration, and Tony should be the one who has lived on the outside world and is kind of an outsider to these heroes, that he should be the one standing up against the government. I see people's reasoning for it, and this is the part where I think the movie does it a bit better, is that with a lot of the villains in the MCU, Tony is kind of the catalyst to a lot of it. Ultron, Monger, kind of Loki to a point. It does flow a little bit more of Tony being like, okay, we need something better than what I'm doing. But yeah, I see both sides of the argument on this one. Personally, though, I think it works better the way that it's written. I think Tony kind of seeing the light of, I did a lot of bad things. There's too many heroes and villains now that we need to sort of bring everybody together and be registered and trained, and there'll be oversight. And if you make a mistake, there's consequences to it and stuff like that. Noah said arguably one of the most important major events. Oh yeah, we said that. I still remember the panel when Cap gets... We're not talking about that yet. We'll talk about that in a bit. Shh, don't spoil. We're getting to that point. But yeah, I see people's opinion of wanting maybe the opposite just based off the character's history. But I also see that Steve has probably seen the government side of it and is looking of, well, maybe we need to go away from it, because I've seen how corrupt government can get after a while. So this kind of leads to the split of the Marvel universe, and this literally comes down to families breaking up. The Fantastic Four is split in half. Sue and I believe I cannot spoil a 10-year-old story. Well, it's not that I'm spoiling it. It's the point of I wanted to talk about it later. I don't want to bring it up now. Shinobi said Cap was right, by the way, in both versions. Well, we're gonna get into that. So this does split the MC. Excuse me. It does split the MC Marvel the not cinematic universe, but the Marvel universe in half. Half do go to Cap's side and kind of become an underground mercenary type group of heroes, and then we do have Tony's side of this, and this is where I kind of agree with Shinobi, but it's tough. Part of Tony's problem with this is Tony and that side does start enlisting villains and starts having them register as well. And I feel like I believe Cap has a couple, but Tony takes a few more on, and I believe they're called, the group is called, Cape Killers. I believe they're called Cape Killers. That is where I feel like they've gone a little too far. I feel like Tony pushes it just a little far over the edge. Noah, Cap is famously against the decision to bomb Japan in World War II. He knows what the government can do. Yes, exactly. It's stuff like that where Cap does see the insides of kind of how the sausage is made, so to speak, that he knows that the government can easily be corrupted and easily swayed in different directions depending on who the leader is and, what the influences are. So obviously with this, we kind of have a very similar feel to the movie. And I do feel like there are some similarities between the two. Spider-Man does play a big deal in both. Spider-Man in Civil War, the movie, does play a big factor because this is the first showing of the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Like, we'd seen little clips of where he was going to be in the next movie, but this is the first time we've seen Spider-Man in this universe, and this is a big moment. I remember being in the theater and seeing this and going, oh shit, like, we've hit a new moment in the Marvel universe, that we're starting to get that Fox universe and that Sony universe into the Disney universe, and this was kind of the first iteration of it. Now, his first appearance is important because he does side with Tony and he does kind of compete in that big airport battle. However, again, I don't want to push the comic did it better, but I do feel like Spider-Man in the comic does what he does means more. And similar to the movie, he does join Tony. And however, just instead of just joining Tony, Spider-Man goes in front of the world and unmasks on live television. Now, this is a very important part in the world of Spider-Man in the comic books, because while they've done so many things with the Spider-Man character over the years, they've never unmasked him in public. This is a line that is crossed that is very hard to do, because you can't really come back from that. And this was a time, again, in comics where it wasn't as easy to retcon. Like, we had one universe, we had one way of doing this. Now we have the Ultimates, we have some other things. This is one thing. Everything that comes after this has to, you pulled this rabbit out of the hat, you can't put it back in. This is important, and it definitely plays a factor into, as Noah brings up next, Peter goes with Tony, but then he changes his mind, and he sees sort of not Tony's twisted logic, but seeing how far he's going in his pro-registration ways, that he changes his sides, and Tony doesn't take that well, and Tony sends the Cape Killers after him and beats Peter almost to death, and is only saved, as Noah says, by Punisher. Punisher saves him, and there is a drawing that Steve McNiven did in the book of Cap walking up, or Punisher holding Peter a very, very beaten and bloodied Peter Parker up to where Cap is and his team and asking for help. It is a very, very powerful scene. Captain America and Tony fighting, it definitely happens, I believe, 2 or 3 times in the book, as you saw in the thumbnail of the episode. There is the big moment where he is firing his blaster at it, and Cap has his shield up blocking it. Another thing that happens later on in the book, and this is again a spoiling of a series that's been out for almost 2 decades now. In the movie, we have the battle. They kind of come to the terms. They go off on their own, and again, with the MCU version, we had the reveal that Bucky was the person who assassinated Tony's parents. That is not part of the comic book story, but I see why they had to do that, because they needed them to actually, have a reason to fight as hard as they are. In this comic book universe, when this happens and Cap finally just hits his point of saying, I'm done, he gives up and he gets arrested and he gets assassinated. He gets assassinated on the steps of the Washington Monument, I believe. And that's another big moment in this series, because at this point we were told Cap's done. Now, if you're a comic book reader for more than 5 minutes, you know that that's probably not going to happen. And he was back not too long later. But this again was a moment of like, wow, this is a big moment of, we have the Spider-Man unmasking, we have the heroes fighting each other, and we have the assassination of Captain America on the steps of a government building. Like, that's 3 big things in a miniseries that probably could have done well with just 1, but worked in 3 very, very well. Shinobi in chat says, didn't Tony stage an attack in the comic version in order to push things along? He was a straight up villain. Yeah, so yes, he does set up a battle. I wouldn't. He does kind of push it along. I don't want to see. So this is the thing: is that on it's definitely, this the way they wrote Civil War, the book. They do a very good job not leaning one way or another. And we're going to talk, I got a quote from Mark that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I really appreciate that, because in the sequel, Civil War 2, that comes out a little later, where it's Tony versus Captain Marvel, it feels very one-sided. This one, you see Tony's side of it. Like, based off the tragedies that happened, it makes sense why you'd want to register mutants. You'd want to register these heroes and villains, because they need some accountability. And again, this is where the logic is twisted a bit, because of the lengths that he goes and the things that he does, that kind of corrupts that decision into not being able to see the other side of it. And that's the same for Cap as well. It really is. Again, this is comparing again to the movie to the comic book series. The movie, it probably affects maybe 20, 30 people. As I said earlier, this has every book in the series at the time was involved in Civil War. So if you try, this is one of the series where if you love this series and you wanted every single issue of this, have fun finding them all, because you probably have a long box full of just Civil War for how many comics they have. I believe there is only 8 or 9 of the original series. I've got the trade paperback and issue 1 in the other room. But yeah, I really appreciate this being involved with the entire MCU. And while Avengers and stuff kind of was on their own in the MCU, it doesn't really get mentioned in any other movie. I've only seen 1 movie, maybe twice, so listening to this is very interesting. Well, I'm glad, and hopefully this will help you pick up a comic and you can read along with us. Crystal's not really a comic, but I think you're a pretty good comic fan. You're more of, I'd say more of a, you're not a hardcore reader like people like Noah and myself, but you do have your issues and books that you do read. So yeah, this does affect every single thing, and this is again what makes this series really cool is you have books and you have teams that may not be initially involved in, the Avengers storyline and the Civil War storyline get involved in this. Like you had your Punishers, you had people like the Thing. There are only a couple people in the MCU I keep saying the MCU, the Marvel Universe in the comic books that weren't involved. And the only big group that really didn't get involved with this was the X-Men. And that's because I believe they say it in one of the issues. I think they talked to Charles about this, and they basically say, we're already persecuted enough. We're not getting involved in this. And I think that's a very fair argument. And I think that makes a lot of sense for them. Of just like, hey, we're not siding with any of you because most of the people already hate us. So I don't want to get involved in this. Yeah. And I think the thought of, as we kind of talked about earlier a few minutes ago about Tony and his ways of getting things done, using teams like the Thunderbolts, which were mainly villains at that point, to hunt the heroes. I feel it's, again, I see Tony's side of it, and I see his thought process of, well, we need to hunt down these heroes to get them registered. The problem, and the part where it falls apart, is that when he does that, it's the people that he sends out to do it. He sends out teams like the Thunderbolts, which was like Scorpion, Jack-o'-lantern, I believe, like some pretty rough villains that really don't have a great positive side. And he's getting them to do the dirty work, which you have a bunch of supervillains who now have sort of a government pass to do whatever they feel like because they're doing it for the benefit of the government. Maybe not the team I would pick to go hunting for your superheroes. And especially a good part of it. And again, I don't want to spoil too much of the book because I've hit some key points, but I don't want to go into too much detail because I do want you guys to go and actually read this book. You can find trade paperbacks at not a bad price now. They've kind of been printed a couple times. You can also find it in the Marvel Unlimited mobile app if you want to get that subscription. This book was written in 2006, and I think if you read it today, it still resonates. Like, we're in a world now, and I don't want to we're not going to talk about politics, even, no matter what country you're in, but, you have two sides. They have the same goal of, we need to figure out a better way to do this. They want to protect the innocent, and they just have very different tactics. They have very different ways of wanting to do this. And the Registration Act debates, it brings up many different things that are in today's world. I mean, we've got surveillance, civil liberties, we've got, government oversight, we've got, cameras all over the place. Everyone's got a cell phone, and some people use those for good, some people use those for bad. And we live in a world now where we're trying to decide what safety looks like. Like, how far should we go to make sure that we're safe? And that's basically what the book is. So it is definitely a book that, while written in 2006, it's always going to work. It's always going to be that way because we're in a world that is just going to get more connected, more involved in knowing everything about each other. I mean, I saw someone today on an Instagram story, and it was, how do you sign your signature? And I'm just like, I can just imagine how many people saw that and did it without thinking, but I see it and I'm like, someone stole this. They know what my signature looks like, and like stuff like that. And some people would look at that as it's not a big deal. Some people like myself look at it and go, I'm going to be a little cautious about that. And like I said earlier, the thing about this book is it doesn't give us an easy answer. Like, no one wins in this. Like, the only win is Cap gives up and gets assassinated. Like, that's not a win for Tony. And Tony admits it near the end of the book of he's like, this is not how I wanted this to go. He realizes the conundrum he's put himself in, but he's so deep into what he's done, it's hard for him to just pull back and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. No, I do not trust social media with anything. Yeah, that's fair. I understand that. It makes a lot of sense. And you believe, and at the end of the book, you kind of see both sides. And as I think Shinobi said earlier, Cap was right. Yes, but again, if you were Tony, and say you were Tony from the MCU, and Tony's daughter was at that school that blows up because of Nitro, you might have a different opinion. And that's where I'm glad Mark wrote this book, where it's not an easy answer, because you could easily write this book and be super, super one side. Like, that would be such an easy write of, this happens, somebody is anti-registration, somebody is pro-registration, and because pro-registration is government, we're going to go complete anti-registration. That's an easy write. But to balance it and to see both sides very equally, and yes, Tony does get twisted a little bit, it's a pretty good read, and it's a pretty good way to write it. But I did want to say that I got a quote from Mark Millar. I found it online, and it really talks about what his choice is. And before I get into that, I want you guys in the chat and anybody here on TikTok, comment of what side you are. What side would you pick? Because again, you have to think of both sides of it. You have to think, if you were Tony and you saw what happened, which one you going with? Noah, I'm 100% on Cap's side, but I see the logic how someone can side with Tony. Shinobi said, I see Tony's side of it. He's just kind of villainous in the comic and a raging hypocrite in the movie. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, he is very much a hypocrite, and I'm glad. I'm not happy that they took him out in Endgame, but it was getting to the point of, if the next villain has anything to do with what Tony does, I think he's lost his Avenger card, because he's been Ultron. He's got Thanos, kind of like, he's kind of had his fingers in a lot of it. Demon in the bottle, exactly. So, quote from Mark Millar says, and I quote, weirdly, some of the other writers would often make Tony the bad guy, which I thought was a strange choice, because I was actually on Tony's side. In the real world, if somebody had superpowers, I'd like them to be registered in the same way that somebody who has a gun has to carry a license. But a gun can kill several people, while a superhero can kill several thousands of people. So on a pragmatic level, I'm 100% on Tony's side. Maybe on a romantic level, Cap's position makes sense, but I don't think anybody in the real world would really want that. I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at things. Now, I believe, again, context is king, I believe Mark does come from a military household. I believe his father was in the military, so government and stuff like that does play a factor, I think, into his outlook on life. But as I said, I do feel anytime I have played Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which I'm the proud owner of on my PS5, which I actually might start up again very shortly because I do want to play through it again. It's basically Marvel Civil War. You play the story basically, and you have to choose at one point. And you talk to heroes from both sides. And it's one of those games where you start out with a large roster, and as soon as you hit that breaking point, you are losing some people and you're gaining some people to play. So if there's, if you're a Cap fan, if you choose Tony's side, you're not playing as Cap for the rest of the game. I originally went with Cap, obviously, because I'm a big Cap fan, but also I had that, I can't register myself to the government. But then after playing through the Tony side, it did make, there was a couple dialogues that happened with the characters that made me think, like, if this was the real world, it's tough to not agree with him. As Shinobi makes a good point, Tony is just written in both as a bad messenger. Kinda. It's a very tough thing to look at and not see Tony's side of it. I remember when it first came out, I had some friends who were reading it as well, and they were just like, oh, it's Cap all the way. Like, they didn't give Tony a second chance. And I'm like, well, I think Tony has some points. I don't agree with everything, but I do think he has some points. But overall, this is if you want to read the whole book, it's only about 8-9 issues. You don't have to read all. Actually, I think it's less. I think it's 7. I think it's closer to 7. You can read those and get the concept. Like, you can get that. You'll be very happy from beginning to end. However, if you want the full in-depth of it, you can go through the many other tie-in books. And one of the best parts about this is that, as I said, every book that was running at the time was impacted by this, and there were tie-in issues to Civil War. You can kind of read through the main arc, the main 7 issues, and then if there were characters you want to know more about, you can just read their side issues. And I think that would make you very happy. I don't think you need to go through every single book. Like, I remember when it first came out and they started, you could get them at a really good price. I wanted to read everybody's. And I remember going to the library. I remember going to comic book shops and wanting to read, like, oh, what's the New Mutants say? What's I believe Cloak and Dagger had one. What about the Luke Cage and Iron Fist? And I was going through all these books and I'm like, it's good, but I don't really care about all these characters, really, because once you get into their books, you get into their minor characters in their world. It got a little too deep into it. I just kind of went for the characters that I really cared about, and to be fair, most of them were in the mainline stories. So, but overall, I really recommend you guys go read this. Like I said, it's only 7 issues. You can probably find them online if you search hard enough. But if you can't and you don't, you can check them out on the Marvel Unlimited app. I used to have that app, and it's actually not a bad app to go through and get your comic books. It's not a terrible subscription price if you're going to read that much. And if not, you can pick them up physical. I know I have the first book of Marvel Civil War, but I don't think it has all of them in it, so I might have to that might be one of my purchases this year at Fan Expo, is getting the full collection, so I can mark that off my list. But that's kind of it. Like I said, it's a very good series that no matter what year you're in, you can read this series and it will fit, because it is a story that is universal. It does not feel like a 2006 book. You can read it today and go, yep, I could see that happening today, and I could see that these are the two sides that would come out of it. One would be very pro-registration, and one would be very anti-registration. And we would have to see what happens. And in this book, Tony wins, technically, but doesn't really end the way he wants. I'll go shopping Thursday with you. Sounds good. We can go shopping and try and find Civil War. That's kind of it, folks. If you guys are still here, it means a lot to me that you're spending some time here on Monday night. If you want to hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, and all those things. Same with the follow button here on TikTok. If you guys want to follow me on social media, I've got a bunch of cosplay stuff coming up on almost all my social media platforms, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube. If you're a wrestling fan, you can hop over to Myers Corp Wrestling on TikTok. We do daily what's happening in the world of wrestling every day, and what's happened in the history of wrestling, I should say, on that day. I've got a bunch of videos coming out this week for that. I'm going to do some more wrestling stuff on there as well. That's kind of been what I built the channel on. I think we're about 90 followers on there, but I'm going to do some more wrestling stuff because I have some collectibles and stuff like that that I want to talk about. So, are you going to cover Civil War 2? I need to finish Civil War 2. I read the first, I think I've got the first 3 issues of that. It's okay. it's not a bad series, but I feel like it's got a tough road to hoe if you're going up against an amazing series like Civil War. Maybe one day I'll read it. But yeah, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. We will be back next week, 7 p.m. again. Next week, we're kind of going to go retro, sort of an old style of episode we used to do in the past. I used to do series on here called the 90s and the 80s episodes where we talked about 90s movies, 90s video games, 90s music. I've had this sort of in the quiver for a while, and I thought, why don't we pull it out as a nice, fun summer episode? We're going to talk next week about 90s McDonald's toys, because if you were a kid of the 90s, that was the thing. And we're also going to be talking about 90s hockey cards and 90s NHL stuff, because that was another thing at McDonald's. But basically 90s McDonald's toys and things that a kid in the 90s would have loved to have had. We're going to kind of go through that. Some of the ones that I remember, some of the ones that I missed out on and I wish I could have in my collection. So we're going to talk about 90s McDonald's next week. So make sure to tune in, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, because we're going to be back next week on Monday. And then, if you're following me on TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff, we will be back. We'll be there. I'll probably be posting some stuff this week about some 3D prints. We're going to do some more cosplay stuff. And I'm going to be posting my lineup for Fan Expo in August. So if you want to know what I'll be wearing at Fan Expo this year, it'll be coming up in the next couple days. But I'm going to let you guys get out of here. Have yourselves a great night, and I hope you have a great week. And I will talk to you next week here on Monday Night Nerd. I love you all. I'll see you very, very, very soon. Thanks so much for watching Monday Night Nerd. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any new episodes.